Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Rise of Kingdoms episode from your very own Shappy Gaming. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button right over there, bottom right-hand corner, and hit the bell so you get notified when new episodes are out. Today, we are talking about something that I have been wary of making a video about. As you guys know, I have been playing Rise of Kingdoms for a long time. 1,105 days. I'm not going to say that makes me an expert, but I've seen the game change a lot over time. And today, is kind of like a airing of grievances or really just sharing, how Rise of Kingdoms was and how it is now and what some of my concerns kind of are. And so today we're going to start with some of the things that have just changed. So one of the things that's changed is Marauders. Back when I started playing, Marauders were by far the most rewarding aspect of the game. If you saved AP, you could kill Marauders, you got a ton of gems, you got a ton of speed ups. You still do. The issue, however, is that Lilith has now diluted the reward pool. And so you can now get these troop-specific equipment chests for Epic. Like, why do I need that? That's not going to help me. But I'm getting that in place of something like gems, or I'm getting that in place of something like speed ups. And so that's not great. And then I can get materials, which is like, cool, great. But I can also get bone as one of the materials, which is like, not great. So the Marauders that we have now are nice. You've probably seen some of my videos on Pre-kvk and how Marauders are the best. If you haven't, you should go check them out. I'll link it right there, top right of your screen now. But they've changed. They're not as good anymore, which is a shame. Which does bring me to kind of the next item I'm going to talk about, which is equipment. When I started playing Rise of Kingdoms, and this is really going to date me here, equipment didn't exist. Equipment was not a part of the game. It didn't matter. And some of you might be like, what? Equipment didn't exist? That's so boring. It made the game really, really balanced. And I enjoy equipment. I think it adds some nice elements to Rise of Kingdoms, but I'm not going to fool myself into thinking that it hasn't created a larger gap between free-to-play and pay-to-win. The other thing is that in kvk, the rally leads and garrisons have to have the best equipment. Well, if you're a free-to-play or a low spender, that means you're probably not going to be a rally or garrison lead, which really means that it's much harder as a low spender or as a free-to-play to actually have as much fun in the game and get as many kills. And so they've changed it. And on that same note, rally leads and garrison leaders now get fewer kills and now get fewer kills when they're garrisoning structures. Used to be that if you're a rally leader or garrison, you got a certain percentage more than everyone else who joined the rally. Now it's not so much. It's based on an algorithm that essentially says, what troop type did you send, what percentage of your troops were there compared to everyone else, and then they take a certain number of kills from that. If you have further questions, let me know in the comment section below. I can walk through it. But they've changed it. Now, it used to be that you were rewarded much better as a rally and garrison lead. But now they've made it so it's harder to be one, and you get rewarded less. Not sure how I feel about that. But while we're still on equipment, I do want to get a little bit into it. Before equipment was introduced into Rise of Kingdoms, it didn't matter how much money you spent. If you spent a lot of money, that was great. Usually this helped you get more gold heads. More gold heads meant that you would max the commanders faster, and you could have more max commanders than everyone else. That's still pretty much true, but now, if you spend money, you can buy equipment. Equipment makes a difference. It helps you in the long run. But if you're free-to-play or low spend, you're at a disadvantage. I mean, we can even talk about it from a VIP point of view, right? VIP 6 gets equipment. VIP 7 gets equipment. VIP 18 gets equipment. But if you're VIP 14 or VIP 15, you don't. And so this just widens the gap between free-to-play and pay-to-win. When I started Rise of Kingdoms, if I had saved up gold heads strategically, I could insta-max a commander that comes out, and I could already be a rally and garrison lead as a free-to-play or as a low spender without that much difficulty. In early game, spending made a big deal. And this is why I think Lilith introduced equipment, for the record. Spending made a big deal at the beginning because you could get T5 faster. You could get more troops faster. But once you've been playing the game for a year and a half, a lot of the free-to-play and low spenders have already gotten T5. And so the gap between the pay-to-win and the low spenders is not as big anymore. So they added equipment, which has become a major differentiator. To make it even harder, they've also now changed Mightiest Governor event. So MGE, Mightiest Governor event, used to only have 5 stages. And it was kill event, it was training, it was barbarians, and it was gathering, and it was power. 5 stages. And what this meant was that if you were a good fighter on day 5, even if you're a low spender, free to play, you could just go really hard, spend a ton of resources, fight a lot. You know, in kingdoms that didn't fix MGE, it was a lot of fun. They've now added this 6th stage called Sprint to Win, which is all of the others combined. But what it has done is it's made it so if you were a good fighter and you were free to play or low spender, you can still get screwed. It doesn't matter how much you fight on day 5, because on day 6, if there's a whale who wants to win, he or she can train as much as they want, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can continue to try and fight, but it's someone's credit card versus you trying to fight, especially in a kingdom where it's duels or fixed. It's not as fair anymore. And this has further broadened the gap between free-to-play and pay-to-win. And if you guys have seen my video on, is Rise of Kingdoms free-to-play friendly, at this point, I don't think so. And I think what I'm covering is a lot of the changes that I think have made it that way. On the same note, gold heads used to be the big deal, right? If you got gold heads for a ward, that was great, and you can use them to max commanders. Maxing commanders doesn't matter as much anymore. If you have a 5554 Nevsky with full legendary equipment, and someone has a max Nevsky with epic equipment, the legendary equipment is probably going to win. And that has made it so gold heads matter less now, equipment matters more. And if you're a low spender, you now have to decide, am I spending my gems on equipment or am I spending them on gold heads? It's helped Lilith in terms of money. I get it. But as a player who has been in this game for 3 years, it's not as fun. This is probably my 9th KVK. And there's not much I can do in it. I can fight, sure, but 30 million kills is nearly unattainable. You can let me know in the comment section whether you have differing opinions. That's fine. But I think it takes a lot more effort, especially if I can't run 7 marches or max my crystal tech. Which brings me to the next thing that they've broken. KVK. Rise of Kingdoms used to be a game that you could spend a certain amount of money on and still have fun. And if you wanted to spend on an occasional bundle here or there, you could. KVK, when I first started, was the KVK format of 1, KVK 2, and then, shortly into it, they added Light versus Dark. All 3 of these KVKs were easily repeatable. They were a lot of fun, and you didn't have to spend money to participate in them. And Crystal Tech has completely changed KVK. It's made Lilith a bunch of money. I don't disagree with that. But it's a lot less fun, because now I have to have good equipment, which is cost me money. I've had to have max commanders, which has cost me money. And then even if I have both of those, it doesn't matter if I can't max my tech. And so as someone who's a low spender, it makes it really hard to have fun. Yes, I can join rallies of people with max tech. That's great. But if I'm in a lower seed kingdom, a C or a D, it's just not fair because I'm competing against people with different wallets. And I'm really bummed about it, to be honest, because I've had so much fun with this game, and I used to be a rally and garrison leader. You can see the commanders I've maxed. But nowadays, I can't really do that as much, which I think is a shame. I hope Lilith does bring back a free-to-play KVK, just to give people things to do. especially with the migration restrictions now. You can't go back to KVK 2. You really can't. Or KVK 3. That means if I want to continue to play Rise of Kingdoms, I have to spend money. And if I want to be a rally and garrison leader, I have to spend hundreds of dollars, which is just not functional and not sustainable. It doesn't matter how much crystal they can give me from barbs. It doesn't equalize the gap. And so I think crystal tech is one of the worst things to come to this game. You know, you're welcome to disagree in the comment section below. But I think, thinking back to when I was playing earlier on for the first year and a half, crystal tech didn't exist. And it made it so I could have a lot of fun. And nowadays when I'm fighting, I think the most fun I have while fighting is an arc. Which, again, no tech. So, the next thing we're going to be talking about is the museum. So, you've heard a lot of complaining. A lot of complaining about Rise of Kingdoms. I don't mean for this to be fully complaining. The museum is a phenomenal addition to the game. I had some concerns when it first came out that it wasn't going to be equalized. But what they've done with the museum is they've made it so even if you are a low spender or a free-to-play and you're an older player, they've revived all the commanders that odds are you probably maxed or you have close to maxing. And they've made them pretty functional again. You know, the Minamoto, I have opinions on, but if you're a low spender, you've probably maxed him. You spent the $300 over time, and you can use him. I personally have not, but that's okay. But they've made these commanders that you've already maxed more useful, which does help equalize the gap a little bit, especially if you're field fighting. Nope. None of these commanders are really going to be rallying garrison commanders, with the exception of maybe YSG. But his buff isn't quite as good as some of these others. So, I think the museum is a positive addition to the game. They've helped people who already have these commanders maxed get more use out of them, more bang for your buck. And, against my prior suspicion, it's totally usable even as a free-to-play. The concern with the museum I had was that it would be expensive. You'd have to buy bundles. They've really made it so you don't have to be on that first bundle if you didn't want to, which is nice. The next issue, migration. So when I first started playing Rise of Kingdoms, migration didn't exist. It wasn't a thing, which was a major problem, might I add, because you'd have people take over a kingdom, create a really hostile environment, start zeroing people left and right, and it was very, very toxic. And migration got added into the game probably 6 months after I started playing, just about, maybe less. And when it was added into the game, the passport requirement was much, much, much lower. I actually think it was 1 passport to migrate. Let me know in the comment section below if I've got that right. I think it was 1 passport to migrate, and it was super cheap, which was nice. I really appreciated that. There were other problems in that you can migrate during KVK and you can migrate into a kingdom. That was bad. I'm glad they fixed that. But keeping the cost of migration low would have been really nice, because now if you want to migrate out of a toxic environment as a free-to-play or a low spender, it's not easy. A lot of alliances do not provide passports. And so how are you going to get them? You have to spend money on bundles, which is a shame, because if you have to buy 30 passports or 35 passports, that's a lot of money. Even at like $5 a passport, that's a lot of money, which is crummy. I think that they should have kept the migration requirement lower. I think that once they changed it, they made it much harder. And then, in the most recent updates, they've made it so you can't easily migrate back to a KVK 2 or KVK 3, which means you're stuck in Crystal Tech KVKs, so you have to spend money. You can't migrate back to a KVK that you don't have to spend money, and you're kind of stuck, which sucks. I wish that they had kept the passport requirements for migration low, which, yes, would have meant that, people are moving around more, but I don't think that's a bad thing, personally. I think that having the ability to migrate back and forth is good, especially if they keep the Imperium requirement. Obviously, this is hindsight. Lilith isn't going to do any of this, but it would be nice to have. The last couple things I'm going to talk about is just some irony. When you think about the best events in Rise of Kingdoms that aren't like, gem events, they are the oldest. Silk Road, very old event that lets you get gold heads. Pre-kvk, and sorry if I mispronounced, also a very old event, which lets you get a lot of gold heads. But if we think about a lot of the other events that have been added, even Olympia and somewhat Tempest Clash, the gold heads are nowhere near the same as what they were, and the effort to get them is much harder. Champions of Olympia, I'm sorry, you can disagree with me all you want, is a spender event. If you're a whale and you have max, equipment on maxed commanders, and you have 3 cavalry or 3 infantry or 3 archers, you're going to do much better in Champions of Olympia than I will, which is a little frustrating. But that also means that you can get the gold heads, which are locked behind a certain rank. So I don't think that's quite as fair. Anyone could do Pre-kvk. Anyone could do Silk Road. It's been a while since Lilith has added any event that lets you get gold heads in the game without an immense amount of effort. And they've changed it, so now the blueprints that you would want are much harder to come by, which just makes the gap even bigger because, again, if I have money, then I can come right in here in the VIP store and just buy up all of these 1,500 chests every week, which is going to make it so I can max my equipment and get a full set before anyone else. As a free-to-play or as a low spender, you can't really buy these chests. I mean, you can, but it's a trade-off. And the events to get the blueprints for these, very, very sparingly. You're not going to get them from Soroli. You're not going to get them from Ian's. Not really. You're not going to get them from really anything. The Golden Kingdom, maybe, but I think that's also probably pretty hard for a low spender. Next is a hot take. Bring back puzzles. I spoke to some of my friends who started with me, and puzzles were a lot of fun. They used to make it so you could try and do puzzles quickly, and you'd get rewarded for it, and you'd rank, and that was equal. Didn't matter how good a player you were. It didn't matter how what commanders you had, what equipment. You could do well in that event and get rewarded with gems. It was a lot of fun. I had a bunch of fun with that. So this has been a lot of complaining, but if you're new to Rise of Kingdoms, or if you're old to Rise of Kingdoms, let me know in the comment section below. I mean, do you think that this game has gotten worse over time? I don't know if I do, but it kind of seems that way. I would be interested to see you guys share this with other YouTubers to hear what their thoughts are. I hope that you've enjoyed. I know I have. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button. That's going to be on the bottom right hand corner. Really trying to grow the channel, so I appreciate it if you can. Thank you. Shappy out.